The claim that Hmong people are simply Mongolian, or that Genghis Khan was a Hmong king, has gained attention in recent decades, especially within diaspora discussions about identity, pride, and historical strength. Because identity is deeply emotional and tied to collective memory, such claims can feel meaningful. However, meaningful narratives must still be tested against interdisciplinary evidence. When evaluated through comparative linguistics, chronological reconstruction, loanword analysis, Mongol imperial records, anthropology, archaeology, population genetics, ancient DNA research, clan structure comparison, military history, religious cosmology, migration modeling, and comparative mythology, the conclusion consistently remains the same. Hmong and Mongols are distinct peoples with separate historical trajectories. The strongest foundation begins with comparative linguistics. Hmong languages belong to the Hmong language family, while Mongolian belongs to the Mongolic family. This classification is recognized internationally in peer-reviewed scholarship, such as Martha Ratliff's of Hmong language history and Juha Janhunen's of the Mongolic languages. Linguistic relatedness is not determined by how words sound, but by systematic sound correspondences and shared inherited core vocabulary, as explained in Lyle Campbell's of Historical Linguistics. No systematic correspondences link Proto-Hmong and Proto-Mongolic. Structurally, Hmong languages are tonal and largely analytic, while Mongolian is non-tonal and agglutinative. These are deep structural differences. Surface similarity between the words Hmong and Mongol is not linguistic proof. Chronology reinforces this separation. Linguistic reconstruction shows that Proto-Hmong diversified internally thousands of years before the 13th century rise of the Mongol Empire. Internal splits within Hmong predate Genghis Khan by many centuries. If Hmong originated as Mongol tribes in the 1200s, the linguistic timeline would reflect Mongolic ancestry from that era. It is not. The chronological depth alone makes a direct Mongol origin hypothesis implausible. Loanword analysis provides another test. When one population dominates another, especially in cases of elite military conquest, core vocabulary often preserves borrowing in areas such as governance, warfare, pastoralism, or kinship. Thomason and Kaufman's of language contact, creolization, and genetic linguistics outlines how such contact leaves lexical traces. If Hmong descended from Mongol steppe tribes, Mongolic loanwords, particularly horse terminology, cavalry vocabulary, or steppe political titles, would likely appear embedded in foundational Hmong vocabulary. Such systematic Mongolic substratum has not been demonstrated in linguistic scholarship. Anthropological ecology further differentiates the two. Mongol civilization developed on the Central Asian steppe and centered on mounted pastoral nomadism, composite bow, cavalry warfare, and mobile encampments. Independent historical works, such as David Morgan's of the Mongols and Timothy May's of the Mongol Empire document state this clearly. Hmong societies, documented in ethnographies like Nicholas Tapp's of the Hmong of China, developed as highland Swidden agriculturalists with permanent mountain settlements, clan-based kinship systems, and localized ritual authority. Ecological adaptation shapes culture over long periods. A complete transformation from steppe pastoral nomadism to highland horticulture without linguistic or material continuity is historically unlikely. Clan structure comparison adds further clarity. Mongol tribal confederations, Borjigin, Taikiad, Merkit, Naiman, among others, are preserved in the secret history of the Mongols and other Mongol-era records. Hmong clans, Vang, Xiong, Li, Tao, and others, do not correspond to Mongol tribal names or genealogical patterns. No documented Hmong clan traces lineage to the Borjigin house of Genghis Khan. If Hmong identity derived directly from Mongol tribal structure, some genealogical continuity would likely remain. Military culture also diverges sharply. Mongol identity was inseparable from horse archery and steppe mobility. Studies of Mongol warfare consistently identify cavalry as foundational. Hmong historical warfare traditions, including documented uprisings in the 18th to 19th centuries, do not preserve horse-centered martial systems as core cultural memory. A society built around mounted conquest does not typically erase that identity within a few centuries without leaving traceable remnants. Religious similarity is often cited because both Mongols and Hmong practice forms of shamanism. However, shamanism is widespread across Siberia, Central Asia, Korea, Southeast Asia, and beyond. Mircea Eliade's of shamanism, archaic techniques of ecstasy, and Robrut Hamayan's research on Mongolian shamanism show that spirit mediation traditions are geographically broad. Mongolian spiritual systems historically centered on Tungri, the eternal blue sky, and later incorporated Tibetan Buddhism. Hmong cosmology emphasizes ancestor veneration, dual soul concepts, household spirits, and clan-based ritual obligations. Similar ritual methods do not establish shared ancestry. They reflect broader Eurasian animistic patterns. Population genetics provides independent confirmation. Genome-wide analyses, such as he et al. In the American Journal of Human Genetics, show Hmong speaking populations clustering genetically with Southern East Asian Highland groups. Mongolian populations exhibit stronger steppe-associated ancestry components linked to ancient Northern Eurasian pastoralists. Principal component analysis and admixture modeling consistently differentiate these populations. The widely cited study by Zergel et al. In 2003 identifying a Y chromosome lineage associated with Mongol expansion demonstrates paternal lineage spread, not wholesale ethnic identity transformation. Ancient DNA research from steppe burials further clarifies the picture. Medieval Mongol-era steppe populations show genetic signatures distinct from Southern Highland, Southern China, Asian populations. There is no genomic signal of a massive 13th century Mongol demographic event forming the ancestral base of Hmong populations. Archaeology shows no transitional migration layer, indicating a large-scale Mongol movement into Highland Southern China Asia during the 13th century. Steppe sites reveal horse gear, kurgan burials, and mobile pastoral artifacts. Highland Southern China Asian sites associated with Hmong communities reflect terraced agriculture and permanent upland settlements. There is no archaeological bridge connecting Mongol steppe society to foundational Hmong Highland society. Comparative mythology offers additional contrast. Mongol origin myths, such as descent from the blue wolf and fallow doe, embed steppe sky, symbolism, and pastoral imagery. Hmong cosmological narratives center on migration, ancestral spirits, and soul dualism. Mythic frameworks often preserve ecological memory. These symbolic structures differ substantially. Hmong oral tradition deserves respect, but must be analyzed carefully. Oral narratives preserve migration memory and resistance themes, yet they do not explicitly identify Borgian lineage or embed steppe cavalry culture as foundational identity. Oral tradition encodes symbolic history, not precise genealogical documentation, and must be evaluated alongside linguistic, archaeological, and genetic evidence. Migration modeling adds further weight. Large-scale demographic migrations leave detectable genetic bottlenecks and admixture spikes. Genome-wide modeling does not show evidence of a massive 13th century Mongol influx forming the ancestral base of Hmong populations. Finally, the burden of proof principle is critical. Those claiming Mongol origin must demonstrate systematic linguistic correspondence, genealogical continuity, archaeological migration layers, dominant steppe genetic ancestry, and explicit historical documentation of incorporation into Mongol tribal structures. Such comprehensive evidence has not been produced in peer-reviewed scholarship. Across linguistics, chronology, loanware analysis, anthropology, clan comparison, military history, religious cosmology, Mongol primary records, archaeology, genome-wide genetics, ancient DNA research, migration modeling, comparative mythology, and oral tradition analysis, the interdisciplinary convergence is clear. Hmong and Mongols are distinct peoples with separate linguistic families, ecological adaptations, political structures, religious cosmologies, and documented histories. Recognizing this distinction does not diminish Hmong identity. It affirms its unique continuity, resilience, and cultural depth independent of Mongol imperial lineage. identity grounded in verifiable evidence is stronger than identity grounded in symbolic resemblance. The strength of the Hmong people does not require imperial conquest for validation. It rests in survival, continuity, and cultural endurance across centuries.